All right, welcome to another episode of Chiropractic is Sexy. I am Dr. Paula Ruffin.
And I'm Dr. Erica Peabody. We are always happy to be here. I don't know, pretty interesting week. And I mean, there's so much to say today, but I am feeling it. And if I'm totally honest, like it's kind of heavy.
It is really heavy. And this is why, today is the 24th anniversary of 9/11. And we would be remiss if we didn't first just say we're sending all our love and prayers out to everyone whose lives were affected. And not that, I didn't know anybody personally over there, but I think just as humans, we can appreciate the gravity of what took place that day. And so it does feel very heavy. And so I think we would also be remiss if we didn't wrap this somehow into a chiropractic episode, because trauma gets lodged in us. And when you think of 9/11, any other trauma, but because it's 9/11, we just want to honor everybody today, everybody knows where they were at. And I remember when I was growing up, it was like everybody knew where they were at the moon landing, when JFK got killed, like big events like that, big traumatic things. Everyone remembers the moment that it happened and exactly where they were at and who they were with. And that gets stored, and you can recall every single detail, which is really interesting about trauma, because when you witness a trauma, some event like that, two things can happen. You can completely forget about it. People have been in car accidents, lose all memory of it, but it's still a trauma in their tissues. Or then you can recall every last detail.
Yeah.
So I think with that, I'm going to ask you, where were you?
Oh my God.
9/11.
So memorable. So, I was actually in chiropractic college. I wasn't started yet. It was a month away from starting. I think we started on October 1st, 2nd, or 3rd, and I can't remember what day would have been Monday. But I was in Atlanta, and one of the things when we have a trauma is that the amygdala, which is the emotional part of the brain, gets super involved. And then it literally gets stored in our tissues, like Dr. Paula said. But I was in Atlanta, and I was substituting for a step aerobics class that morning. I worked at Bally Total Fitness.
Bally. Way back, yeah.
I know. So there's a Bally Total Fitness on Cobb Parkway down there, which is about 2 miles south of the chiropractic college. And I was living with my aunt and uncle at the time. They're both chiropractors. And I was subbing a 6 a.m. class that morning. And 6 a.m. is not the time for me to be up working out. I am not a 6 a.m. I've always wished I was a 6 a.m. workouter, but I just know that getting up out of the bed and going right into workout.
That's where we are yin and yang. We are not yin and yang on that.
No. Well, I just think about, okay, you just woke up and then you go right to the gym. And I do respect those that do. I'm not sure it's very friendly to our physiology and our adrenals in particular. So I remember I was there, I was subbing, and my mouth, I had been an aerobics instructor for 5 years by that point, 6 years. And I've been teaching multiple classes. And so I remember saying basic right. And then my mouth moved, but my feet didn't move. And I remember having a chuckle about it because I couldn't line my body up right. And it was a huge class. And so, but I drove home, and being in Atlanta, we were obviously East Coast. So I think it's happened at 7 something. Did you find the time this morning? I know we were watching. It was like
8. I think the first plane crashed. It was like 8:20 or 8:30.
Okay. So I remember driving back to my aunt and uncle's house, getting ready, and then going into work, which was at their chiropractic office. And I remember being there and hearing this. And initially it was like a Cessna hit the World Trade Center, blah, blah, like it was so confusing what was happening. And then the entire big cities on the East Coast, everything shut down. Like it was within hours when they realized that it was a true attack on the country. Like everything froze. And I remember we've never had TV on at the office. Sorry, this is going to just ring and ring. Oh, there we go. It's muted. We had the TV on all day. We've never had the TV on at work, but I remember watching and all the details unfolding that day, and just our area being locked down. Our office still was open, but people were just like, what's happening? And still, it's so interesting. So many details, like this many years later, are mixed and off, but it is all, it's with us forever. What about you? Where were you?
I was living with my friend Billy, my dear friend from high school, Billy, and he had this big where you recall all the details.
Uh-huh.
It's crazy. And so we had this huge island, and the TV was over there, and we were sitting side by side eating breakfast, and we had the Today Show on, and we were chit chatting, and we both just stopped and looked at each other, and he goes, "A plane just flew into the World Trade Center?" And I go, "What?" And we got up and we walked over to the TV, and we were like, what the F is happening? And then we just stood there. I just remember standing side by side next to him, watching what was unfolding on the television. And then the first tower collapses, and he's like smacking me. He's like, "Oh my God, did you see that? Oh my God." And meanwhile, we're both staring at the TV, and I'm like, "Dude, I know." We're like, just like, what's happening? And then my sister called me from California. She was living in California at the time, and she called me on her landline. She reminded me this morning. She called me on the landline. We were on the phone most of the day. And my mother had been on a Greyhound bus coming back home from West Virginia, and her phone died, and we couldn't get a hold of her. So we were like just at our wits' end for hours, because we didn't know which bus she was on. We didn't know what town they were stopping in. We didn't really know what time she was going to make it. Was it delayed? Like, was she even on the bus? Like, so we're freaking out. Where's our mother? We can't get a hold of her. And it turned out the bus ended up stopping in Ohio somewhere, and everybody got off for a break or something. And then they saw it on the TV, and then she found a phone and called us. Well, in the meantime, we were still all just holding our breath for her to get home. I think that was the biggest thing, was like, everybody needs to be, family just needs to be,
get home.
Everybody just needs to get home. Yep. And I did go to work that day, and it was so eerie, if you remember, because all the planes were landed. So there was no noise in the sky, which you don't realize there's not noise in the sky until there's no noise in the sky. And then it was the same thing, just, went to the office and had the news on and just listening to to what was happening. And people were just coming in. And I mean, everybody was just in complete disbelief. So, and it's interesting because as you relive it, and this morning, and I remember texting you this morning, and I was saying Fox News was replaying their newscast from that morning. And they had clipped it, but it was still very much the timeline. And I was watching it, and you were like, "No, thanks." Well, that's really the first time I had seen a whole thing put together in 24 years. And I was just bawling in my bathroom when I was getting ready, watching that this morning, because I think it was the first time, when I was in shock. I think we were all in shock and disbelief back then. Like, it was like the emotions didn't come out from that. But this morning I watched it and I was reliving it. And my body doesn't know that it's not real.
Right. That it's not today.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the same trauma. It's the same trauma. It doesn't know if it's real or imagined. And so, so I've been feeling very heavy all day. And then, of course, with the shooting yesterday in Utah, there's a lot. So,
there is a lot. And this is, of course, to have 9/11 on the heels of the loss and assassination of Charlie Kirk is just I mean, that's a lot. I was in practice yesterday. So we are dealing with humans, and humans have these responses, as you all know, and probably responded not only to 9/11, but probably to yesterday. And there's other news from the last couple of days like that. That's just
Yeah.
out of this world in our minds and how much that affects us. So, um, I was in practice yesterday from 3 to 6, and this patient comes in and just like mind blown tears. She's like, I can't even believe what just happened. And it feels as though to her and in her physiology that it is somebody that she truly cares about, even though it's a media presence, even though it's not a direct family member. Like, we can store these things in our bodies. When we hear horrific graphic details of a stabbing that should never have happened, it's like, it doesn't matter how near or far they are, this stuff gets stored. And I didn't know a lot of the details about it because I don't have the news on here. I don't
Yeah.
watch the news. I do listen to certain podcasts in the mornings because I do want to know current events. And there's one particular podcast that's just like a 20-minute, just little blip current event. So I know what I'm walking into because all the humans around us are affected by that. And it's like, then I'm able to prepare. But that one sort of hit me blindsided yesterday. And then, of course, our text threads were coming through, one with another group and then one with our chiropractor girlfriend group. And it was like, just, okay, now we have to just brace ourselves for what's going to be coming in. And then also, like, I remember I never had this thought before. On Sunday, I was at the Renaissance Festival with that crowd of people, a lot of people dressed up, very, very crowded place. And it was really nice and really fun. And it used to be a whole lot more fun because we didn't necessarily have to worry about where's our nearest exit. And we didn't necessarily have to worry about what's around us. And it's so hard not to these days. In fact, I had a friend text me this morning. It's like, you know what? No matter where you're going, look for the nearest exit. How do you get out? And I really don't like that. That's our world. And it's very heavy on my heart today. And there's just no way around it for me today. It's going to take a little bit of time to process. And there was a patient that came in and they're like, I'm just mind blown. And I said, one of the greatest things we can do is get adjusted. One of the greatest things we can do is tend to our nervous system. Instead of saying, how are you? One of our mentors was like, ask people, how is their nervous system today? Especially after like the holiday gatherings and family and blah, blah, blah. How's your nervous system today? Mine's off. I got adjusted yesterday, but it was before all of that happened. And I could feel my system off. You're muted.
Thank you.
There you
I was
go.
hoping to make it to your office yesterday after my hair appointment, but there was just one too many things going on, which also is a nervous system issue. I was busy. That's stressful. And I think even just on a minor level, when you have to move through your day like that, I don't think people consider that stress, and it is stress. And then you have major events. And I came home yesterday and I saw, because I leave the TV on for the dog, and it was flashed across the screen, and I was like, wait, what's happening? Like, what did I miss? And it really, it's amazing. And I just think about, the kids who were standing in front of Charlie Kirk yesterday, and the trauma that they'll never unsee that ever. And I had a friend of mine so here I am, I'm like re-watching the towers and the airplanes and people jumping out of buildings this morning. But my girlfriend sends me the video of him getting shot. And I had just told her, I said, I don't want to see it. And she goes, oh, sorry, I just sent it to you. And I refuse, I won't watch it. I'm like, I don't need to see somebody's head getting blown off. Like, I can imagine it just fine,
Well, there was this great, let me see if I can find it really quick, because I reposted it this morning. It goes like this. You were never meant to witness someone's final breath and then laugh at a TikTok. You weren't built for that. Your soul wasn't designed to hold that kind of weight and then move on like nothing. This isn't just about tech. This is trauma. This is spiritual damage. We're overstimulated, underconnected, and completely shut down inside. We're seeing everything and feeling nothing, and that should break your heart. It's so
That's
true, though.
amazing.
I
That
know we're
is,
not built for that. We're
no.
not built to have this. And I could not help myself last night. I lost a lot of sleep last night because I was definitely down the rabbit hole and I know better,
Mhm,
but I
mhm.
just couldn't. I wanted to know so much more.
Same.
And we have access to so much more, and it's hard to get it to shut down. And we are not meant to watch that and then, like they said, scroll on TikTok, scroll on social media. We're supposed to take things in, be able to process them. And when we don't, I'm sure you guys can feel this if you're listening out there, because I can feel it in my spine today. We literally start feeling like this is pulled this way, and this is pulled this way, and this is pulled this way. And then these are vertebra stacked on top of one another all the way down our spine. When we can't process and integrate, we don't take the time to process and integrate, we start storing that into torsion and tension in our spinal column. And that is our information superhighway from our brain to our entire body. Guess what that does? It creates dis-ease. So lack of ease. And then that on a chronic level, which I don't know how it's not chronic in our world today, leads to eventually to disease. So dis-ease first is a chiropractic term for this all the way down the spine. And then beyond that, it just fight or flight, and then torsion and torque and tension. And our health changes that way.
Well, and every time you think we've talked before about the water study,
Yeah. Oh,
where the
Dr.
positive,
Emoto. Yeah.
speaking positive messages to water and
Yep.
negative messages to water. And for those of you who don't know, and this scientist, he then froze the water crystals, and the ones that got all the negativity were like shards of glass. And then the ones that were got all the positivity were like beautiful snowflakes. And this happens in our bodies, where just physiologically, when we have a good positive thought, we get a very different chemical cascade that promotes health, versus when we have experienced trauma or sadness or stress, we experience a completely different cascade of chemicals that can create dis-ease. And so that's also where that comes in with the physical, chemical, and emotional piece. And how chiropractic goes beyond just neck and back pain is that these physiological changes actually are almost more damaging to your nervous system and to your brain and your body and the function of everything than, I'm not going to say like a physical trauma, like a slip, trip, fall, anything isn't bad. But I think we tend to discount, we tend to underplay what stress, what trauma, what emotional things that we experience on a daily basis. We underplay the actual damage that can cause in our nervous system. And that's the message that Dr. Erica and I are trying to change, is that we take it way beyond neck and back pain in our practices every single day, because we know what you're going through on a day. Well, we don't know the depth of it, but we have a pretty good grasp of what everybody goes through on a daily basis. And so we want to be able to have a greater impact on your overall life and health and your ability to think and sleep and manage relationships in your life. So we're really hammering the emotional piece today, because that trauma, and it's going to be all day. It's going to be, I've got videos. I'm like looking at testimonies, and I was listening to a woman. She was the last person pulled out of the rubble. And she recapped her whole experience, just detail by detail. She was in the rubble for, I forgot how many hours. But then they got her. She was 30 feet down under rubble, and they found her. And she was the last person alive that they pulled out. They didn't find anyone else alive after that.
Yeah.
And she was in the hospital for like 3 months, but she recapped it detail. What do you think that poor woman, and she said she prayed and she found God in that moment. And she was like, okay, my life has been spared and I have greater things to do. But she needs to be under chiropractic care.
Oh, for sure.
Like,
for sure. I was
is or not, but
right. No, I was just thinking about, if we talk about the Dr. Emoto water experiment, and I'm wondering, I'm just going to see if I can I don't know if I can actually share the screen. Here we go. I want to see if you guys can see this. Can you see that? I
No.
don't know if you can see that. Okay, so
Oh, there you go.
I
You
just
did
wanted
it.
to
Look at you. You did
I
it.
did it. But I just wanted to pull this up so you can see truth. Thank you. I love you. And eternal as compared to you make me sick, and just all of the water structure that comes out of it. And I am now curious. I'm not sure if I can unshare this screen. Let's see if I can do this. There we go.
There you go.
Okay, so as we look at that, if our body is 80% water, and literally they took a glass of water like this and put the word I love you or I hate you, froze it, studied the crystalline structure. And Dr. Emoto, EMOTO water experiment, go look at that and imagine if your body's 80% water, what that would do for you and what that would do to the structure, illness, injury, or wellness, life, living, or sickness, disease, and death. That matters when you're 80% water. And, just if we're not able to find a way to integrate whatever the thing that goes on for us, if we can't integrate it right away, car accidents are this way, emotional stresses, divorce, loss, breakups, just so many things that overwhelm our system. Our body has a way of saying, we're going to store this, and we're going to process it later. And so if it keeps doing that, we're going to store the stress of my boss, and we're going to process it later. We're going to store the stress of my spouse, we're going to process that later because it's too overwhelming. I got to get on with my day. So that's when we get enough chronic storage like that, torque, tweak. And then all of a sudden, the body, after a while, it just gets really exhausted by that. Pain molecule, substance P, is released chemically in the body, and then we start to have pain and tension. However, that is such a far down symptom in our world of emotional, physical, mental, all that stresses, that we need to be seeing a chiropractor no matter what, because these things are building up before we're actually symptomatic. So if we think about the water for one and what that does with our mindset, we've talked about this: eat well, move well, think well, drink your water, get your rest, and get adjusted. That think well, and I won't flip you all off, but the third one that we talk about all the time matters way more than anything could ever, than anybody's really saying. The body has an incredible ability to do what it needs to do. It's going to continually adapt. And if you go into your medical doctor and they just prescribe a drug for some of this and that without helping you process, what good are we actually doing there? That's not the answer. I was thinking about, we need to talk about who can we trust these days. And maybe we can talk about that in the next couple of weeks of talking about the podcast. And I was just thinking about who can we trust out there to help us with our health and wellness? We're here for you. And we have no vested interest. We have no kickbacks coming from anywhere. We're coming on here because we're so passionate about what we're doing. We're not sponsored. We're nothing. We're just so passionate about
what please share.
Yeah, please share, because yes, subscribe, share with your friend, and comment and all that, because we're just here as trusted people, and we've got almost 50 years of combined experience between the two of us. And what we're seeing on our tables is making a difference. That's why we're here. But it all matters, and it all matters all the time, and it all matters all the time way before symptoms.
Well, and cancer can be 10 years before someone gets a diagnosis.
Yep.
It's crazy. Mm-hmm. And so I also want to state this, is that one stressful event is enough to raise blood sugar for 2 weeks. So oftentimes people will go in to their doctor and they'll get labs done, and their A1C, their blood sugar, their fasting blood sugar is elevated. And they're like, you're diabetic or you're pre-diabetic, when they had really just had a stressful event. It can raise blood lipids. It is enough to flip the microbiome of the gut, because blood sugar drives inflammation, and that blood sugar causes direct damage to the good, healthy microbiome in your gut. So it's critical to remember that just because, and I know you've had this experience too, where, I guess we'll just use divorce as an answer, or as a example, as they'll be like, oh, well, my divorce is final. Woohoo, good. And then they think that from that day forward, they're totally fine, or whatever the thing is, right? You move your daughter to school, right? So I had to deal with that in the summer and get her off to school. Just because she's off to school, just because the event is over, does not negate the months, the years, everything that led up to that moment. And I have we have a friend who's going through a divorce. It's 20 years of trauma for her. And so just because the day comes when the divorce is final does not negate the 20 years of trauma that she had to go through to finally get to a place where she is getting divorced. So I think, again, it's really easy as humans to compartmentalize this because our heads would explode. The stress is far too great. And, we often joke, but it's not really a joke. We say your issues are in your tissues. The brain it's got to put this stuff somewhere, which is why a lot of times you guys come to us and we're like, you should be getting better by now. We have a certain expectation, a certain level of knowledge and expertise that we know when you should be starting to turn the corner and starting to feel better and get your functionality back. But when that doesn't happen, we start diving deeper into the emotional piece of it. We're going to ask you about traumas, because we know certain traumas get stored in certain places in the body. And if your body's not releasing it and you're doing all the things, we probably need to drum up some of that trauma and get that flushed out of the body.
Well, the other part too is that we have to feel it to heal it. So that's another part of it when we go to mindset and traumas in particular. And I was having, I've had my own health adventure recently. Well, always. The health adventure is always, but a pretty intense adventure from about a year ago, from October last year. But that's just where the symptoms kind of started. But I was chatting with one of my practitioners that I'm working with, and I just did, this big scan and blah, blah, blah of the body. And, I know him well enough, but I don't know him enough to be as vulnerable as what's going to take just yet. And he was saying, we were talking about the emotions and how that when it gets stored in the tissues, like you said, our issues are in our tissues. And I said to him yesterday on our it was a virtual meeting because he's about an hour and a half from here. I said, I'm a vessel. I tend to find myself being a vessel for unspoken traumas inside of my family of origin. And that my body and physiology, like as empathic as I am and sensitive as I am, I just kind of take it all in. And there's I come from a massive family, like massive. My mom's one of 10. My dad's one of 9. My mom had an additional step 7. My maternal grandmother, when she passed, had 97 underneath her. There's an additional 30 on that side since. My paternal grandmother was
a small country.
I know. My paternal grandmother's 67. They're 67 and there's an additional 25 on that side. So it's just massive. And there's a lot of just repressed things in human existence. And anyway, and he's like, yeah, this is more than just the things that you haven't done with your body. This is like things that you're absorbing and putting in and sort of housing, for lack of a better word. And then of course, seeing the patients over 20 plus years now. So anyway, it's so important. It's like, that's when I'm going to go do like sound bath and breath work and make sure my yoga's handled and I'm walking and hugging trees and laying in the ground, just hanging with friends and laughing and just stuff like that. So, and of course, getting adjusted, getting massage regularly, doing supplement, just all the things, right? So it all matters. And we need to figure out ways to keep our minds good without spiritually bypassing everything and whitewashing everything and silver lining everything. And, the events of our world, including 9/11 and some of the most recent things are stuff that's stored. So
Well, and I
anyway,
think it's also important to recognize, just to springboard off of what you're saying, is that we also can't be unrealistic and say, positive think your way out of all of this and
right.
stuff that down. Like you do have to, and I think maybe that's why you and I were both just in it yesterday with Charlie Kirk, was that I was like, oh my gosh, I was feeling the feels and I needed to go through it. I needed to see what was happening. And because I also don't want that to linger.
Right.
And so I'm sort of a fast and furious kind of person. Like, okay, let me dive in, get all the details. I'll follow it for a little bit. I'm praying. I mean, I went to bed last night and I just prayed so hard for his family and everybody. I mean, so if we can go to a place where we can remember, but then not actually take it on, I think it's really remembering with a certain level of peace and safety. And I always go to, I go to God. I don't know that I want to make this a religious episode, but just this is me personally, is that my faith, when I feel like I don't have control over anything, that is my anchor. That is the thing that brings me peace. It is the thing that gives me hope. And everybody needs something like that. So, whether it's God, whatever your thing is, you have to have something, and it's got to be a higher power. I don't know. I don't know what in this world you could look around and not see that there is a higher power. But I think it's critical to be able to have that, because we can't take it on emotionally. And you have to be able to just say, please take this off of me and give me peace and give me hope and faith that it's all going to be okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that will say, oh, everything happens for a reason. And it's just like, I don't, maybe. I don't like that thought of it. I think, I don't know. It's just an interesting, I have a hard time believing that at this point in our world too, especially. So.
Well, I think we also have to look at it from the opposite end. If somebody that we disagreed with was killed, would we be celebrating? I mean, just because I disagree with you is not a reason.
Never a time. And we've
I
lost
feel
our way.
Yeah, like if you're celebrating someone's death who also was making a great impact, it doesn't matter. But if you're celebrating that or laughing over it, cheering over it, you should probably check yourself. There's probably some darkness in your heart and talk about nervous system chaos. Your nervous system cannot handle that. That will not end well for you. A lot of people, we had our friend of ours told a story about this woman who was kind of always angry and didn't like her. And she ended up dying of cancer. And I was like, you hear that a lot of times, like, and I'm not saying like good people don't die of cancer, but a lot of times there are people and you go, wow, yeah, that person was always really angry. And I guess my point is that even if you have a chronic illness, if you can change your mindset, there are plenty of stories out there that changing mindset can actually cause healing, much like in the water. And I know Joe Dispenza does a lot of work around that as well. So this is actually documented cases. So when there's anything chronic going on, check your mindset, check your mood, check your heart, and start to move towards a place of more peace, more hope, and in my opinion, prayer.
Yeah, no, for sure. And truly get adjusted. It sounds so silly to add that in there, but if you knew what chiropractic is really doing, you would also choose that. I have a lot of, we collectively, everybody, there's been a lot of loss, obviously, especially since 2020. I just kind of like put a flashlight, a magnifying glass on that. And over the last few years and prior to 2020, I would say that at any given time, which I got into practice in 2005, so 15 years in practice at that point, and I had seen anybody everybody in my practice, it was probably like 15 to 20% were in major crisis, like major crisis at any given time. Since 2020, everybody, 100% of everybody has been in major crisis at some point. Like 100% of people have been affected by that. And if you say you weren't affected, you are absolutely lying to yourself, fooling yourself. And you should also take a little bit of an inner look. But that's a lot for humans to be working with. And it's been really, I want to say nice. It's been a really gratifying to help people to have gone through enough ourselves to be able to like step into the grief. Even with that woman that landed flat in my practice, like minutes after she found out yesterday, it's like just to be able to hold a space and container for them, get them adjusted, and then let people kind of move on their way. And whatever's going on with like inside the household is affecting absolutely everybody, because it's just like the energetics of it all affects. So yeah, I mean, good, bad, ugly, all of it. It affects our health, and getting adjusted to help move people through that stuck sympathetic response.
Well, and how many times have you adjusted somebody and they've had an emotional release?
Yeah.
They're like, I mean, this only happened a couple of times, but I know other chiropractors has happened multiple times where you adjust somebody's upper cervical and they immediately go vomit, or they immediately have to go have a bowel movement, or like the body is holding on to so much shit.
Yeah.
And a simple adjustment, I say simple, but
it is simple for us.
It is simple. It's
profound though
strategic.
too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so we are providing a simple calculated adjustment in a very strategic part of your nervous system that will affect you in such amazing, mind-blowing ways. And so, also if you're somebody that, if you know you have trauma, if even again, from the littlest thing to the most major things, relationships, kids, accidents, injuries, like anything you've been through, it's really important that you reach out to a chiropractor, if not Dr. Erica and me, and let's start releasing what is stored in your spinal column so that you can start to feel better. That tension that we feel, a lot of times people will lay on our tables and their shoulders and their mid-backs, it's like they're like brick walls, and that is so much tension. So we've got to be able to release that so that you can function better. And chiropractic is ultimately the best way to do that.
Yep. Yeah. There's no other way. There's no drug. There's no potion. There's no lotion. There's no silver bullet somewhere that would help in doing that. So there, you had mentioned an upper cervical adjustment, which the upper cervical spine is right basically where your head is connected to your neck. That's the very top of the spine. And I was attending a birth down in a birthing center a few years back, and this mom was just stuck. Like she was stuck in dystocia, which is basically like just non-progression of the labor and delivery. And it was so interesting because I stepped into the room. She was laboring in a tub in Southfield in the ABC Alternative Birth Center, which is attached to the hospital. And I just did an upper cervical adjustment, and her water broke like within like a few seconds, like maybe within a minute. And when her water broke at that time, of course, they got to pull her out of the tub inside of that particular setting. If you were at home birth, that would just continue on. But because they were there, they're allowed to labor, they're not allowed to birth. And so that water broke, the baby started to descend and was born within the next hour, because she was it was like her nervous system is like this. And so we give that adjustment and it's able to just come down. Parasympathetics are on board, baby descends and births. And that is a very, very significant change in the birth outcome. But also, if you imagine that just in your regular day-to-day, it's a significant change in your daily outcome of how you feel.
Mm-hmm. And the trauma of birth, the baby, which is why we adjust babies.
Yeah. They say that we never say that chiropractic care helps you feel better. Of course, it does help you feel better, but it helps you feel better. Like not feel better like this, but like feel yourself better. Get
Processing.
better accepted.
Yeah, processing.
So anyway, I think we can
Yeah. Well, I
probably
think that's
circle
good.
that.
Yeah, and we just we like I say we today's episode may have been a little heavier than most, but I think it's just we just like I say we need to honor this day and everyone involved and anyone who is feeling the feels of it and the events. And so just want to encourage everybody to just just hold people in your prayers and in your thoughts, hug your families, just get closer, call somebody that you haven't talked to, shoot them a text message. If you're thinking about somebody, don't just say, oh, I should call, but really reach out to somebody today. I really encourage everybody to reach out to somebody and you'll make their day, I promise. So yeah. All right, you guys, thank you so much for being here and for all your engagement. And we will see you next week for the anniversary of chiropractic, which is also my birthday. So that's going to be a fun day. All right. Have an amazing week, you guys. See you soon. Bye.